Welcome to Just a Farm Wife with your host, Tara Emerson. Tara is a farm wife, photographer, mom, podcaster, author, public speaker, and much more. On this podcast, Tara takes listeners on a journey through all aspects of life and how we can create future growth. This podcast helps to empower women to believe they are more than the labeling that society hands them. And remember, you are never just in anything.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Just a Farm Wife. I'm your host, Tara Emerson, and today I want to talk about my story a little bit. Most of the time, I would shy away from something like this because it is personal and it does have to do with family. That is something that, on the whole, I would say every single family has dysfunction. And every single family deals with their own conflicts. And especially when you're running a family business together, there's a myriad of issues to deal with. And I feel that all those should be handled internally. You should always handle them directly with who they deal with. And they don't need to go anywhere, right? It's a family issue. It's a family business issue and needs to be dealt with internally. However, we are at a point in our journey now that we've tried to keep everything handled within the family. We haven't gotten anywhere, and now all of these issues are starting to affect our business and our livelihood and our son's business and his livelihood. And to me, that is just crossing a line that should never be crossed within a family. This is why I feel like at this time specifically, it's really important for me to tell the story of the things that have happened. Eventually, I will get to a book about all of this because you will never fit all of this within a podcast. There is so much to unpack, and it's years and years to unpack. Right now, we are going to discuss the things that have happened in the last few years and the things that are going on currently. My in-laws are currently suing us, and this has been in the process since December of 2023. And we still have not gone to court yet. We did have one court date, but the next is coming, 2025, July-ish, 2025. But currently, the situation that we are in is that in addition to suing us, they have started talking about their story to everyone. And I believe that my father-in-law and mother-in-law have a narcissistic personality disorder enabler type of relationship. I've discussed my experiences with my therapist, and they agree with my conclusion. When you have a couple that has this type of dysfunction, they don't know when to stop, and they don't understand how they do understand. They know how their lies affect other people. And when you have this type of personality disorder, you reverse victim. So all of the things that they have been saying about us is, in fact, what they have done to us. And the reason that they do that is so that they can be the victim. They can have the sympathy. They have control over the situation. And we don't say anything because we are emotionally mature people. And that's not how you handle life. That's not how you handle business. You handle things directly with one another. Currently, my father-in-law has been sending physical letters to other landowners telling them that my son stole from him, stole equipment, and that we have stolen equipment and money from them. And in order to really understand where all of this is coming from, you kind of have to go back to the beginning and work your way through it, because to see this part, it really doesn't make any sense. Why would anybody do these things to their child and sabotage their child's business and then try to sabotage their grandchild's business. To a normal, emotionally mature person, none of these things would ever be possible in their life. So we are going to go back to 2011. I know that is a really long time ago. I had a 1-year-old at that time. We had just moved into a new house. We had a ton of changes in our life. And we also ended up buying some new land that year as well. This is where everything really started, when this behavior got really egregious. In 2011, I was doing paperwork. And mind you, at this time, I had only been doing the paperwork for like 3-4 years. So I was still getting the hang of it. And I wasn't doing daily paperwork at that time. I was just doing the annual paperwork. And so I was being taught by my father-in-law. In 2011, I was doing the paperwork. And I still have copies of this email. I was doing my books and he would make me compare them to his because it was supposed to be a farming partnership where we farmed 50-50. I went through all of my things because I'm using actual numbers. And I came up with a difference of $70,000 in expenses. And I figured out where it was. It was in beet hauling. At that time, we had hired somebody else to haul our beets or to help us haul our beets for us because we didn't have all the equipment yet. His response to me, and I still have this, his response back was, your beet check was more, so I needed to claim less expenses to make it equal out. However, that is not how we operated on beets. Beets are two separate entities, and we did not farm beets 50-50. We did share expenses on beets, but the income was separate because that's how beets work. So my husband went to talk to his dad about that, and his dad blamed me for the mistake. And then this is when things really started getting intense. He started a fight over some other farm bills or whatever between me and John so that we would just drop this. And this is a pattern of behavior that continued on for the next 10 years. After we would question what he did, he would bring over a stack of bills that were like 6 months old and be like, oh, Tara didn't pay this. Tara didn't do this. And it would obviously start a fight between my husband and I because I was obviously stretched very thin at that point, having babies and moving and doing all those things. The more thin he could keep me stretched, the better it worked out for him. There was always this pattern of behavior that would try to put in all these eggs in a basket so that I was constantly juggling, trying to create distrust between my husband and I, so that every time I would go back and ask questions, there would be a fight so that we would just drop the question. Fast forward, we're getting into like 2018, 19-ish, and our crop insurance person noticed that we, in consecutive years, have lost money and did not show the proper income that we were supposed to show. In farming, you get paid per bushel, right? And you have so many bushels per acre, and you report all of that to your crop insurance agent every year. Your crop insurance person always knows about how much the minimum income you should have from that. And so we went through and we're like this for 3 consecutive years. It just did not add up. And one year we were short $70,000. And other years it was like 30 and then 40. It, kind of went up and down. Our crop insurance agent came to us and said, you guys are about $150,000 short in the last few years. You need to get to the bottom of this. It's really important, which obviously that's a lot of money, right? We went to John's parents because they controlled the paperwork. He controlled the paperwork, John's dad. He controlled the paperwork and he controlled what went into the elevator and who did what and how things were separated. Each consecutive year, I kept changing because I understood more. So I kept changing how we split things. Like we split things at the elevator instead of him splitting it, because up until probably even 2016, he would collect all payments for all crop and then write us a check for whatever he said it was. And I didn't even know how many bushels we sold. And he would be like, oh, well, you don't need to know that. And all of those things. I do want to tell this story because, I was naive. Incredibly naive. I just thought that, oh, well, this is your parents. They're going to look out for you and I'll just do whatever they tell me to, right? I was doing the books and it did cross my mind, like, why don't I know how many bushels? So when we would do the annual paperwork, these are exactly how he would tell me to figure out what my bushels were for the previous year. He would tell me to work backwards. He would say, you know how much you got paid? You know how many acres you had? I'll give you the price. And that's how you figure out what your bushels are. And I just was like, this sounds so dumb. No wonder nothing would add up correctly. In 2019, I know I talk about Annie's project quite a bit, but in 2019, I was just like on this crazy train. I was like, I feel like I'm losing my mind here. None of this adds up. Nothing makes sense. What do I need to do? What do I need to change? So that's why I took Annie's project, because I'm like, I can't be this crazy. I'm young. I still have my wits about me. And that really flipped everything around for me. And it really confirmed my own sanity because everything that they talked about, and it put me in touch with people who really knew what they were talking about. And the questions that I asked finally got answered, instead of just explained away or pushed away or whatever, or you're just a dumb girl, basically. That was really eye-opening for me. It was really, really good. I was just that naive. I was able to start peeling away the layers. And so when I started peeling away the layers, it made things line up for my husband as well. We ended up actually trusting each other more because what I was saying was actually what was happening. In all those years of doing paperwork that way, whenever I would go to FSA or the bank or whatever, when we would do our annual paperwork, nothing would add up ever, because I was trying to use actual numbers. And this other person, my husband's dad, was using completely made up numbers. But they were made up enough that they were close, so everybody believed whatever he said, right? And he paid his bills. You generally don't question someone who pays their bills. When things were getting really hard, so after that, thing in 2021 where our crop insurance guy was like, okay, we need to do something about this. When we went to talk to his parents about this, because his dad was the one who controlled the books, so obviously that's the first person that you would talk to about it, right? When my husband went to talk to him, I was not allowed in on those conversations. And I actually have not talked to my father-in-law since that time. And when my husband went to talk to them about it, they made it about me and that it was my fault that things didn't add up and that I wasn't good at doing paperwork. That didn't go over well with my husband. They end up having a big fight about it. They go to talk about it again. And at this time, it's a fight. It's yelling at each other because one farm partner doesn't care about the other farm partner's financial issues. Well, that's a big red flag. And so they end up getting into a big fight about this with his mother and his father. And she's the one at that time who could see some sort of reason. And my husband was like, we need to do a forensic audit so that we can get to the bottom of this. It's no one's fault. No one is blaming anyone, but there is a shortfall somewhere. and we have to figure it out. So they have this fight. A few days later, we get a letter. We get so many letters from his father. That's the only way he knows how to communicate. And we get a letter from his father that says, well, we're concerned about your shortfall, so we will pay for the forensic audit. Yes. Isn't that funny? Red flag, red flag, red flag. So I talked to ID Bailey, and they are the ones who performed the forensic audit. And I said, okay, how should this go? I don't feel like it's a good idea for them to completely pay for the audit, because then the audit is going to say whatever it is they want it to say, and you can't even talk to me about it. So we decided to split the audit. We paid for half and they paid for half, and we gathered all the information. It took them like a year and a half to complete this audit because of all the excessive paperwork that my father-in-law gave them. ID Bailey ended up writing off $10,000 of fees because they went through my father-in-law's box of handwritten notes and paperwork that didn't matter. The paperwork that we had turned in was exactly what they had asked for. And I actually ended up doing a lot of the audit myself. Obviously not doing the audit, but gathering the information for the audit myself. And that's kind of why I took a break from my photography business as well, is because I had to go searching for all that information myself because they did not cooperate. And so the longer that this went on, we would find more and more issues. In the forensic audit, so the last letter that we received from ID Bailey said that there were definitely discrepancies in land rent, brayer rent, and expenses, but the expenses were too messy and complicated so that they didn't even touch the expense side of this audit. They only looked at income, because income that came directly from vendors. So that was the only thing that they could really track with any validity. And at that time, we also found out that my father-in-law didn't turn in his farm operating account information. When we turned our bank account information in, we turned in all accounts, even my account that was for my photography business. We turned in every single one, because in a forensic audit, that's the information that they need in order to perform that service that you are paying for with the correct information. We found out that he did not turn in that farm operating account. He admitted to it, that he had one. However, he did not turn it in, and he was never going to. Red flag. There's so many red flags in this story. It's really ridiculous. And so after all of that, I think we were at 2022, and this report had come out, and months went by. They wouldn't touch it. They didn't want to talk about it. His mom or his dad. They refused to talk about it. I sent them a bill for what it said was missing in the forensic audit, and that opened a giant can of worms for me. It was awful. I know on my Facebook page and everything, I've talked about the harassment and that sort of thing. And that's really when things started getting worse. And then I was getting sent letters from him frequently, let's just say, to threatening me and saying that I was doing the wrong thing and it was all my fault and whatnot. He even sent a letter to my accountant stating he was going to sue her for misappropriation of funds. And to get one of those letters from him is actually really scary because you can feel the anger behind it when you read it. She's a smart lady. So she gave it to their legal team, and the legal team said, they're like, yeah, he can't sue you because we are their client. They were just doing what we told them to do because that was the right thing to do. during this period of time, there were all kinds of scare tactics happening and harassment and stonewalling. I mean, a ton of emotional abuse and trying to silence us during this time. And at that time too, I mean, something like that you want to keep internally. I mean, you're still thinking that their family, they're going to make this right. Like everything's going to be okay. You know, their family, we're going to get through this together. It just didn't. I mean, things just kept falling apart day after day after day. Everything would fall apart. I mean, something so small would set off this giant reaction. And meanwhile, my poor husband had to work together with this person on a day-to-day basis. There were so many crazy things happening, and that will be brought up in the book or a different episode. But in 2022, it was December of 2022, and none of this was taken care of. At this time, he was retiring. I'm going to go off on a little side tangent here because this is actually relevant and a giant red flag in this story. So in January of 2021, before we started looking into all this, he was telling everybody that he was retiring in 5 years. So the banker, the FSA people, anyone who he came into contact with, he would say he's retiring in 5 years. That was January of 2021. So after we started looking into everything, when our crop insurance guy came to us, that was April of 2021. And by July of 2021, he announced he was retiring. 2022 was his last year. That is a giant red flag in and of itself. I don't think I've ever heard of or seen a farmer retire in 1 year unless they had cancer or were, had a terminal illness. I have never, ever seen that. And in all the people I've talked to over the years, they've never seen it either. They've never seen someone quit in 1 year and without a plan. So that brings us to our next phase of this. In December of 2022, so that was his final year, there was still not a plan in place in December of 2022. Who does that? It is the craziest thing. And so in December of 2022, my husband decided to recruit some help from his sister. She is the one who finally got the ball moving in this. And she did a really nice job of helping to mediate because, that was another thing I missed in all of this. We asked them for mediation multiple times because that makes sense. That's how you handle things like this and in such a big operation. Mediation is a very healthy way to handle something like this. And it puts everything as legal documents. You are held accountable for what you say, right? And that was refused. Still to this day, there has been no mediation besides my husband's sister trying to go back and forth in between the two. And that is another sign of incredibly dysfunctional behavior and an emotionally immature parent. She was able to get his parents to come around a little bit to talking. So my husband and his dad had a meeting together in a neutral place, and they hammered out prices and whatnot for the equipment. And now this is in March of 2023. Still, no plan, but you retired. This is something else. So in March of 2023, we are left hanging because all of this equipment we have to use. But this is one of those stall tactics that narcissists use so that they can get you to do whatever you want them to do. They had this meeting, they hashed out an agreement, and at the end of the meeting, my husband was very adamant and he said, I will not sign anything from you. This meeting is not legally binding. This meeting, I will only sign something from an attorney. I don't trust you. You have gone back on your word on so many things within our partnership that I will only sign something that is legally binding. He was like, oh, okay, fine. I got to talk to my wife about this. We laughed and we're like, okay, whatever. I mean, I wasn't there, but I laugh about it now because she doesn't know what equipment is worth. That wasn't part of something that she did on the farm. Our attorney worked with his attorney. They made the settlement agreement. In the settlement agreement, all the equipment is there. All the parameters are there. My father-in-law would not sign this agreement unless the settlement agreement said that we were not allowed to sue him for final accounting or anything after. I think that's probably the biggest red flag of them all. But mind you, this was the end of March of 2023, and we were planting in April. And so we signed this agreement because we felt like we had to, just to get this over with and just to be done. Like, we were done having these petty arguments. We were done with the letter writing and campaigning and all of this. We were just done. We sacrificed. I mean, what we signed was clearly not a good deal for us, but we did it anyways to keep the peace and to hopefully have some sort of relationship after, right? And that is what our attorney recommended. Because, going through litigation and all of that is a horrible experience. It doesn't matter who you are or how right you are or whatever. It's not a great experience. So we signed this settlement agreement. It says that we can't sue each other, because if we're going to sign something that says we can't sue him, well, we're going to have that protection for ourselves. This brings us into what's happening now. He found a loophole in order to sue us. Keep following along to find out what happens next, with part 2 coming soon. And in the meantime, you can check out my new book, Jolene the Fluffy Cow Mindfulness, at Market Society Cavalier, Last Chance Trading Post Hallock, and Silver Dawn Bookstore in Grand Forks. Thank you for listening to today's episode. And remember, you are never just an anything.